My name is Cheryl Ojeda, and welcome to Sober 50, a program that looks at lifestyle and issues for the Sober 50 community. Today, my guest is Teena Cahill. She's a clinical psychologist, a world-renowned speaker, an author, and the host of a program, Wisdom and Beyond. I'm so excited to have you with me today, Teena.
Well, it's my pleasure.
So, Teena, one of the things I was so excited about when I was offered the opportunity to interview you is that you had written a book, and the title of the book, The Cahill Factor, Turning Adversity into Advantage, takes a look at the life you've led, which is extraordinary. And I just want to briefly kind of let the audience know, at 46 years old, your husband suffered a life-altering illness. And with that, you propelled yourself into the arena of making sure he was healthy, taking care of your family, continuing to move on with your career. And I just want to know, where did all of that come from? What gave you that ability?
I think women have always done this. I think we are looking at women differently now. That's a good thing. And maybe thinking that's remarkable. But I think women have held their families together for generations. Women have worked outside the home for generations. My grandmother was widowed twice by the time she was 34, was a cook in a restaurant till she was probably in her mid-60s, and reared 5 girls. And so I think women do that because I think we live wide. Women live wide. You have a lot of roles, I have a lot of roles, and it's really good for us. Because, you know, if you just have work, like men, maybe they go to work, they come home. It used to be their wife did everything. That's not so true now because we have 73% dual income families. So hopefully, like in my kids, the boys and the men and the women share household tasks, and sort of seamless, and they both go to work and all that kind of thing. But if you have a lot of roles and one of them changes, you still have all these other roles that sort of propel you forward. You have a sense of responsibility or joy, happiness. Maybe you like these roles, because most of these roles I think are fun. And so I think women have always done this. I mean, what's the alternative? By the way, you have 6 kids, your husband has a cerebral hemorrhage, he's never going to work again a day in his life, and you're trying to get a bunch of kids through school and graduate school. What is the alternative? Are we all going down the tubes? I don't think that's a good idea.
You used the word joy. When I was reading the book, I immediately found joy in my heart. And I know some people may say, well, it sounds like that was a tragedy. That was, you know, really hard. But for me, the joy was how you moved through it. And the energy in reading this book that it gave me to believe that you just keep going. There's a quote you have in the book, and I keep a magnet of that quote on my refrigerator. And it's Winston Churchill. If it's
when you're going through hell, keep going.
That's
and then I've added, it's no time to stop.
And that's exactly what I felt as I continued through the pages of your book. Now, I think I had mentioned to you earlier, and I want to make sure the audience hears these words. You have some buzzwords you use. Resilience. You can help me out if I miss any. You have strength, leadership, hope. And all of those words, as you read through this book, you bring into the chapters. You weave a wonderful story, and the reader ends up at the end of this saying, if I possibly can kind of reframe how I think about issues, it could really help me.
I love that you got this book. You know, when I speak around the world, I speak in major corporations, at big conventions. Now I also speak in some caregiver conferences, aging conferences, things like that too. But it's pretty much the same material, but I might tell different stories around it. Because, you know, to get through life, whether we're a CEO of a company or running a family or working outside the home as well as inside the home, or whatever we're doing, whether we're single, doesn't really matter. It requires resilience, which is really pretty much defined as finding and using your strengths to go forward, sort of being determined. Don't think I've never had a bad day. I started speaking because I was having a bad day. I was remembering everything that happened. I was feeling sad, and I said, Teena, why are you sad? You've got such a great life. You've got great kids. And then I thought, what do you like to do? Well, I went through college on public speaking scholarships. So I decided to see if I could become a speaker. Nobody would let me speak even for free because, they didn't get it. And then when they would let me speak, nobody came, so all my girlfriends came, which is why you need girlfriends. But now, I recently did the Istanbul Convention Center, and I do convention centers all over. And
didn't you recently do something at the Smithsonian?
I did. I just spoke for a week on the National Mall. They built a stage between the Capitol and the Washington's Monument. And I almost died because it was 105 degrees, but that's beside the point. When I was really hot, because I spoke twice a day for 5 days.
Oh my goodness.
And so it was so hot, so I would go in the Air and Space Museum and buy a ticket to the IMAX theater and go in and sleep, and then I would come out all perky, and people would say, you seem so perky, it's so hot. Well, I just slept for an hour in air conditioning, so you do what you have to do. But anyway, resilience is finding and using our strengths to go forward and finding a way to bounce back. And as you know, I come from sort of the cognitive behavioral wing of psychology, where we talk, you already used the word reframe. A cognitive reframe means that we know that our thoughts affect our feelings and our feelings affect our behaviors. So when my husband had all these problems, I could have the thought, he's going to die, be really depressed, and probably not do much, and you can't always control these things.
Right.
But in this particular situation, or get another opinion, and then see what we could do and go forward. And I think we can do that in all of our lives. So if we're looking at our life and we think, well, I don't really like my life right now, this isn't feeling so great, well, I can make another choice. How would I like to live my life? What are my strengths? What do I love to do? And the more we do of what we love to do, the more we go forward and the more resilient we feel. And the big trick in life, I believe, is seeing what's right, not what's wrong. I think that is the big trick in life.
And
I mean, there's a lot wrong, but let's build, because health is built on what's right.
Yes. And twice you hit home with me when you said, and I think this is for anybody who's kind of stuck. You said people were angry at me because I wanted to make certain decisions about my husband's health, about at what point. There was a point where you needed to move him from the hospital he was at to a teaching hospital.
Right, to University Hospital.
University Hospital. And you didn't really care if people were angry at you.
That's right.
It's what you needed to do. And I
Right.
think a lot of times we get stuck
Right.
knowing intuitively what's right for us to do, but wanting to be such pleasers.
Well, especially, exactly, women in particular, right?
That's what I was
and
thinking.
especially in the old medical model, which is changing, and I think it's changing in part because we have more women in medicine, which is a great thing. And it's more of a team approach now, right? But we're talking 20 years ago, and we weren't in such a sophisticated area when this happened. So, it used to be in medicine that the physicians thought they were gods, or they thought they were all-knowing. Well, that's never healthy for any of us. We're all going to make mistakes. None of us knows everything. You could be at the top of the profession and still want to learn more. I mean, that's what we want to do. So I was able to network my way to the head of neurosurgery at a big university hospital. And, too bad. You don't like it, so what? And so the guy was very empowering to me. And, before I even hung the phone up, he said, Teena, tell them to clear the parking lot. Here we come with the helicopter. And he's a great guy, by the way. I think that the people that are most successful are the most generous. Do you know that guy has gone on to provide resources and references to me that have actually saved the life of a couple other people?
That's amazing.
And he always takes my phone call. He's very kind. In fact, my husband has a problem now, and I just spoke with him. And he just gives me ideas. And I think that it's important in any profession to be a human being, as well as knowledgeable in your field. And those are the kinds of people I like to work with.
And those are the best people.
For me, they are.
And they move you forward. I have a couple of Teena quotes, I'm going to call them, because they impacted me, and I'm hoping that everyone picks up the book and reads it. And even if you're stuck or not stuck.
It only takes 2 hours.
Yeah.
I wrote it for busy women. I wrote it for you. I wrote it for busy women to read in 2 hours.
That was exactly it. In between running the business I run, I was reading the book. and I was taking notes, and I was jotting down, let me try this, let me try that. And there was another epiphany for me, and there was something about balance, where you say, balance is both a myth and distraction. Life requires action. Life events do not come to us in moderation. They come in twists and turns and towering waves, complete with unrealistic expectations. And for the life I've lived at this point, at 55 years old, if balance is what makes it work, I don't believe it. And so when I read this quote, I said, she gets that too, which is extraordinary. Yeah, can you expound on that?
Well, I just, you know, I think that, my generation of women, we were the first women through the door of opportunity. Sometime in the 70s, my girlfriend is the president of Mercer County College, Dr. Pat Donahue. Yes. And Pat has this belief, and I think she's right, that there was one day in the 70s that the door cracked open and a bunch of us ran through. So when I went to graduate school to get my doctorate, I was a single mother with 3 kids. Trust me, nobody had that demographic profile in their mind. And so you had to really, kind of fight your way in. And so I think those of us that were the first through that door, not that exceptional women have always been through the door, there have always been a few, but I'm talking about the great mass of women that started to get through the door. You learned very quickly that there was no such thing as balance. I think it is a sexist culture, right? Mm-hmm. Part of that is that women haven't had economic empowerment. Part of it is, the men have sort of dominated. That's changing a lot now. And so women really thought they had to be good, and they get denigrated for the work they do, especially in the home. And so as part of that sexist culture, and women thought they had to be good, I see balance as some kind of myth that was perpetrated on women because they're succeeding now, and that was an attempt to give them one more thing, something to think they're failing at, because it's an unrealistic goal. You're never going to have balance throughout your life. You're going to have peaks and valleys. Maybe it'll average out, but I mean, it's like, oh, I had a perfectly balanced day. I really doubt it. And so, but women, we buy into these myths that we should be better, we should be good, we should run faster, and it's ridiculous.
I agree.
What you want is resilience. You just never quit.
And you just keep
knock me
moving
down,
through.
I'll bounce back up. Knock me down, I'll bounce back up. But I'll bounce back up using my strengths. I'll bounce back up. When you're in trouble, I'm a great believer in going forward in a positive way, taking action. If everything around me is caving in, is it good for me to stand there and just watch it? Or is it better for me to prop up what I can prop up, change what I need to change, move forward based on who I am?
And with that positive attitude, as you propel yourself into the next 50, because who knows how long we can live. It's extraordinary what we can do. Because when I first met you, you had just won a tennis tournament.
Oh, yes. A USTA 3.5 women's, and it wasn't seniors, and I won last year. This year I failed miserably. It was horrible. Oh, well, you can't win them all.
You can't win them all, but you won't stop playing.
No, I'm not going to. Are you kidding me?
And that's the whole point of it. So you have your tennis, you have your travel, you have your family. Where do you see yourself as you move through the next 50?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know that I actually...
I stumped you.
I don't know that I actually planned that far ahead. I mean, I love my life. Mm-hmm. I'd like to do more writing.
Okay.
I'd like to find the time to do more writing. I love to play tennis. I love the grandkids. They're great fun. I love my husband. I don't know. I guess I love my life. I mean, I have so many great parts of my life, right? I have my practice, speaking, writing, family, friends, not necessarily all in moderation.
Right.
And so, I don't know. It will be revealed to me.
Do you enjoy, is there one aspect of it, of your professional life you enjoy more?
Well, I love my clinical practice. I absolutely love
yes.
it. I also love speaking to a whole big room full of people and laughing and educating them at the same time. Anxiety inhibits learning. So, when you go to these big talks and it's all so formal and stiff and all, I don't think people learn so well. So I like to be funny. I like to be funny because I like to have a good time and laugh. And I like the people to laugh and think that they're getting educated at the same time. So I love that. I mean, that's a great fun thing to do.
Now, when you're public speaking, the topics, are these topics generally suggested to you, or do you take from the book?
Well, I mean, leadership, I talk about a lot. One of the things, and I speak at Disney World fairly often because I've got a job in October, actually, in Disney World again. because the first time I spoke at Disney World and I went through the gates with Mickey and Minnie, I thought I was so cool, I have to tell you. But now I've spoken there a lot, so hi Mickey, hi Minnie, I just keep going, right? But I speak about leadership, which I define as, and very simply, and other people define it this way too, as developing the potential of the people around us. And I think that, leadership got co-opted by somebody in a three-piece suit back in the 1950s. And certain people, I'm a leader, that meant I'm in charge. Well, you are in charge, but not in that way. I think a leader has to assess the people around her, be it family or a company. The job in October at Disney World this time is a big national convention of franchise owners. So these are people that are running businesses, and I speak in business and big business and small business, as well as medical centers and women's programs all the time. But I always talk about leadership, and it's all the same. Whether I'm at home with my 6-year-old grandson or with my husband or whatever I'm doing, it's the same philosophy of leadership in our family as well as it is in the workplace. My job is to assess you, figure out what your strengths are, talk to you about that. Usually our strengths are that which we like to do, and try to put you in a situation where you can succeed. So that we usually succeed by doing what we like and what our strengths are, and then building a team around you to support you in doing that. And that's what great leaders do, whether they're mothers or whether they're CEOs. So that topic I talk about all the time. When I speak to caregivers, which I do fairly often now, since I am one, and most of us are anyway, I think caregivers are the greatest leaders on earth. What's my job as a caregiver? To help develop the potential of my husband. What's your job as a mother? That's a caregiving role. Or a father, that's a caregiving role. What's our job? To help develop the potential of our children so they can find and use their strengths to go forward and make a difference in this world. That's our job. So these things like resilience and leadership and hope, we can talk about hope in a minute, cognitive reframes, a thing that I think you got from the book, and I'm a nobody, I'm not a big famous author or anything like that, and but I think the book cut across, and a lot of publishers, when I published this, which was back like in 2007, they didn't really understand this because I was a little bit ahead of the curve, right? But you don't need to separate your personal life from your professional life when you talk about these things. And generally speaking, we have a book for women, which is about whatever, not having enough balance or something, and you got to go do more yoga. I'm not busting on yoga, but you get the idea. Or you got a book over here for somebody in the workplace. It's all the same.
It's another term. Resilience is the platform upon which we develop our strengths, find our authentic leadership style, and go forward into the future we demand. We were born to lead.
It's true.
So that last line, when you said we were born to lead, a few minutes ago you talked about the leadership falls into all categories of your life. Until I'd read your book, I had not thought about that. I as a parent, had moved through. In my former career as a lawyer, had moved through acting out these roles, and I said to myself, was I naturally being a leader, or if I had this book, would I have reframed some of my behavior, and how
and
much
seen yourself as a leader.
Seen myself as a leader and felt more empowered.
Right, and exactly, and felt more empowered. That's the whole point. When we see ourselves as a leader, we feel more empowered. It's always way better to be empowered than to be a victim, trust me. It's like a way better thing. And if I had to write that book over now, I would say leadership comes from our toes. Because what happens that makes me a little wacky is that they have these leadership conferences, and I'm going to teach you how to be a leader, and I'm the big leader. And in companies, they have leadership seminars all the time. I don't think those are all bad, because you can learn various strategies and things that are specific to the company and all. But people have to know that they walk in being a leader. Now let's fine-tune it.
I totally agree with you, because I think often we don't find in ourselves what those talents may be. So if they are brought out early, they're brought out in how we parent, they are brought in our relationships with girlfriends, with husbands. I think then in the roles we play, we are stronger as we approach issues.
It's true.
And it's not a thought process. We seem to naturally go through.
And it's all very positive. I mean,
it is
we
very
know
positive.
that, as I said, anxiety inhibits learning. Well, it also inhibits productivity. So if you want a company to be productive, if you want a family to be productive, you want to see what's right, not what's wrong, and build on it. Yes, there are certain things that you have to draw the line, and you might have to at home ground somebody or have a conversation with somebody at work or whatever. It doesn't mean that there aren't places where you have to draw the line. But by and large, we want to see what's right with people so that they can grow more. Just as and that's why I think it's so hard for women, although I think it's getting less hard. But I think over the generations, the society didn't want to tell women what was right about them. You're not young enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough. I could go on. How about the thing, women's sports aren't that interesting? Give me a break. Have you seen the Olympics? If that didn't bust that myth, come on. So, the world is changing, but we still have a lot of those myths out there to keep women second guessing themselves.
And last but not least is the concept of hope. When you talk about hope in the book, it brings everything together.
Yes.
And if you could talk a little about that.
Well, hope really matters, in my opinion. What's one of the best things we can do when our mood is down? Exercise, right? We know that we get mood enhancement from 5 minutes of exercise or walking. It brings us mood enhancement. And that's because of the chemicals that are released in our brain when we use our body. Well, guess what? Those same chemicals are released when we have hopeful thoughts. So when we have hopeful thoughts, and a lot of times, even if we don't believe it, if we can work at having a hopeful thought, even though there's a part of it that says, I don't know, our brain sort of picks up on it. And it gives us a little energy to help us perceive things differently. And then when we perceive things differently, it also gives us the energy to take action in a positive way to maybe be more likely to get what we were hoping for in the first place. So I think hope is undervalued in our society. I don't think we talk about it enough. But I think hope is right up there. Making a choice to be hopeful is right up there with making a choice to use our bodies, because we know we think and feel better when we use our bodies through exercise in whatever way our doctor says is okay for us to do. And our body, we're kind of hardwired for success. Besides the hope stuff, when we exercise, not only do we get mood enhancement, but more exercise can help our heart. And then now, they used to think we didn't make new brain cells, but now we know we do. And so when we exercise a little more, there are these undifferentiated cells at the base of the brain, and we release a growth hormone that stimulates them, and those new brain cells tend to drift toward the areas of memory. Okay, so talking about aging, not a bad deal. So I think that a lot of the answers for how we want to live our life are out there, and we should all be educated in the areas that interest us, and sometimes in the areas that don't interest us, but we need to know. But we also have to listen to ourselves and know that, human beings have survived for a pretty long time here. All of us have strengths. Figure out what they are, and you know that using your strength, when all of this happened and I decided to speak like I'm doing, I didn't say, well, I think I'll go be an accountant, because I would hate being an accountant, although I do love my accountant, I gotta tell you, I love him. But I did what I love to do. I love to educate. I'm a teacher.
You talk a little bit about how you got to this point. People viewing this show today might say to themselves, okay, she's just one of those women. She's extraordinary. I can never be like that. I read a little bit about your background in the book. You come from Ohio, hardworking people. And do you believe it's about digging inside and believing who you are? Is there something you feel that makes you different, or what would be the words you'd give to someone who feels like, I can't do what she does?
I think that we're all extraordinary, if you want to use that term, in our own special ways. Look, I was pretty lucky. It was a hardworking family. This was a very lower middle class, rural factory town. My father was a factory worker. My mother worked as a secretary. Not even a secretary, as not a secretary. That's a pretty professional job. She was more like a clerk, which she loved it. She did a great job at what she did. And I think she was capable of rising up, but she didn't live in a world that she was able to do that, okay? Right. And so I think I got really lucky, because in this farming community where I lived, it was very matriarchal. Farm women are tough women. And some of those women embraced me. And I was given tremendous opportunity, at least given the situation. When I was 16, there was a service group that sent me to the UN to study for 2 weeks, and there was an international speaking contest, and I won that. Here I am, this little kid from rural Ohio. Like, what am I? You know what I did? They took a bus and they went all around the country, and they picked up a winner from like every state, and they took us to New York. This was like 1962 or something. What do you think the first thing I did, or maybe it was 63, the first thing I did when I got to New York?
I can't even guess, Teena.
I went to go find Tiffany's. I was always a smart girl.
Yeah, a very smart girl. I love it.
I know. It was fun.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, but I just want to end with this quote from Teena's book because it was uplifting. And it's, life is not fair. Nothing is forever. Everything changes. We cannot control the world. Balance only lasts for the moment, and it's all okay. I encourage everyone to read this book, The Cahill Factor. As Teena says, it's a quick read. She wrote it for busy people, and she wrote it for people who just kind of think they can't. If you read this, you truly will believe you can. Thank you so much for being here, Teena.
Thanks for having me. Take care.